Assalamu alaikum and welcome to yet another episode of Sky's the Limit. I'm your host Fahim Bangash. As you all know, Sky's the Limit is a program in which we discuss personalities and meet personalities who achieved something in their lives, who've done something in their lives. And in our many episodes, you've seen such people, such personalities, and I'm sure you've gained a lot of inspiration from them because obviously getting a purpose out of your life is not something really easy. And as they say, leadership is something that's not just words, it's also your actions, rather more of your actions than the words. Well, today, I will not give a huge introduction about our guest because in our conversation, we'll ask each and everything. I'm sure you all have heard his name, and it's an honor to meet him. Without further ado, I'd introduced him. This is Mr. Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry. Sir, welcome to Sky's the Limit. It's really a pleasure having you and talking to you because, like I was telling you, I had heard your name, I've read your name in my news, and watched you on television, and it's like meeting a celebrity. Sir, first of all, we would definitely like to discuss your professional life as well, but first of all, we'd like to discuss your personal life. Tell us, where were you born, about your education, about your teachers, about your parents, your family. Tell us something about that.
Well, I was born in Wazirabad, a small town on the banks of Chenab River. But soon after my birth, our parents' generation moved to Lahore, which at that time was the happening place. And my father was in the military account, so we got a house, a government house in the Lahore cantonment. Lahore cantonment, in fact, the whole of Lahore was no match to today's hustle and bustle. It was a much quieter town. And I did my early schooling in Lahore. In fact, during the transition, probably I got late into getting into the school, and so I got my early education from my mother. My mother was modestly educated, so she just taught me the basics of mathematics and Urdu language, and of course Holy Quran. So the result was that when I went to the first grade, I was already 6 years old, slightly older than my peers, but that education that I received from my mother gave me such a heads up that Bangash Sahab, I started securing top positions in my class, and something that stayed right through the end. In fact, in my BSc from Punjab University, I was first class first, and they gave me a certificate of having broken a record of long time.
Oh,
and
wow.
In mathematics, I never lost a mark in metric or intermediate or BSc. Not 99%, 100%. And I think the credit for that goes to that early exposure to my mother's education, which was very basic, but I think it makes a lot of difference. So yes, that's my beginning. And then we went to government, government Central Model School. You are right, it was very competitive to sit in that exam and to get into the first shift. And for a 6th grader to travel from Lahore cantonment to Lower Mall Road, Lahore, was like traveling from one end of the city to the other. And there was only one bus number 1, that would ply from R.A. Bazaar to Krishan Nagar, which became Islampura later. So we will get off Government College Lahore. But I had to catch that bus at 5 a.m. and I had to travel something like 2 miles, 3/4 of an hour to get to that bus, and if I missed it, then I could get late for the assembly line. So therefore, I had to get up something like 4 o'clock every day. And but it was worth it because that school was a great school, and I got my competitive edge there. So
It has produced some really great names.
It has, and it was a big name of Lahore at that time, and we got some early good schooling. And then I was fortunate to get admitted into PAF College Sagoda. It was a pre-cadet college at that time, very competitive, and we And there I learned something, Bangash Sahab, which is very different, very different. That was that education is not about knowledge. Education is about character building. So that it's the character building that came in so handy, that I was able to establish my life on the basis of principles and not on the basis of quest or ambition for something. So I am so pleased that I was able to get my education from PF College Sargodha, and becoming a Sargodian then stayed that theme with me throughout my career. I would tell you that in United States, when I was ambassador there, I brought together all Sargodians, 173 of them from North America and even from Europe. And this is a fraternity that gives so much strength to each other, because all of them are high achievers and we all want to serve our country and our motherland. And it is such a pleasure that in my early schooling, I was at the PF College Sargodha.
Wonderful. And do you think this thought which you've just shared with us, that education is not just knowledge, it's about your principles, it's about your individuality, was this inculcated in you by your parents or also by your teachers or peers, or maybe the time was such that maybe perhaps the environment was such that this was inculcated in you?
I think a lot depends on the teachers. Of course, your parents are the primary builder of your personality, but the teachers there were very, very, shall we say, committed. But there was also a tumultuous time. I went there in September of 1971, 4 days before the fall of Dhaka. So you can imagine the environment there. There were Bengali students who were leaving at that time. We, of course, in 8th graders won't have that kind of political consciousness as to what exactly is happening. So we were sent to PF base Sargodha. We filled up these sandbags to prepare for the trenches, etc. So we made our modest contribution to the war effort that was looming at that time, because India was threatening even to attack the Western Front. So this was our first exposure to a monumental crisis that our nation faced. And I remember just before that we came back to Lahore, and the war had started, and all our parents and everybody else, siblings, had gotten together. We were young kids. And I remember, on the late evening of 16 December, when this news was broadcast, I saw my father, my uncles weeping, crying like babies. That left such an impact on me as a young kid. And I said that we cannot be that helpless. We must not be that helpless. We must build this nation strong and sturdy and resilient. Never again should we face such a quandary and such a thing. And since then, at least I have made my own contributions. I know that it takes a lot, but Allah has blessed our land, because there are so many of people with such commitment and resilience that despite huge challenges, our nation has survived and has thrived. And Alhamdulillah, I see a bright future for it.
So the 1971 war was like something that changed something inside you. And that's when you realize that you have to take that leadership role, and you have to contribute in the nation building efforts, and you have to become an independent individual who makes his own choices, right?
And above all, a patriot, because Pakistan is what we make it. And unless we are good Pakistanis, and we serve the very society that gives you what you have, then you are not living a useless life. But if you think that you are, just for making livelihood, then I am sorry, you have set a very low target for your life.
That's true.
The life has to be much bigger. Either you are serving the humanity, or you are serving the society, or your tribe, or your city, or your country. Somebody. To serve is your life. To just live like a cucumber is not life. Life is to serve, and art of giving is actually, and I learned early on It was a Christian saying that, "Oh God, grant me the strength to not to, seek understanding, but to understand, not to receive, but to give. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to an eternal life." So giving is receiving. That's a message that I received early on, and I must say it has served me well all throughout my life.
Your diplomatic career has spanned on for more than 3 decades. You've been to several countries, you've served as an ambassador. What did you learn in those experiences as far as being a Pakistani is concerned, as far as this Islamophobia in the world is concerned, as far as the respect for Pakistanis is concerned? Can you share something with us?
Absolutely. My about 26 years of living abroad in different countries has taught me that Allah has been so kind to Pakistanis in terms of our IQ, intelligence quotient, in terms of, we are very fast learners. We're very hardworking also. So there is no dearth of skill and talent that Allah has bestowed on you, as well as the resources. When I compare myself to other nations, and I spent 6.5 years in the United Nations, and I came across and rubbed shoulders with so many people of so many nationalities. Trust me, Pakistanis were way too smart, and therefore it is important that we recognize that we have what it takes to rise as a nation.
You believe Pakistan
have
a lot of potential, yes.
Absolutely.
True. Now, when did you decide that you wanted to get into the diplomatic circles?
Again, I'll have to go back to PAF College Surgodha, because we were being trained for becoming GD pilots. So I went to PAF Academy Risalpur, but then I learned to my own horror that I had this air sickness, a nasty air sickness. So whenever the aircraft went into an inverted flight, aileron roll as they would call it, and then I would go into a blackout, which probably was normal for a few seconds, but then when I wouldn't come, it would take time to come back. So I had to make a choice, either to move to ground branches or to engineering or some others, or try my luck outside, and I opted for outside. But when I came out, my father was not happy. He thought that the best way to live is, to live in uniform. He was a man who was a super patriot in that sense. I think foreign service offers you the best of both worlds. So I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I've served to the extent that I can. And that process is still continuing. Even in this Institute of Strategic Studies, where it's my 4th year running, I believe that that journey that started in December of 1980 in the Foreign Service of Pakistan is still continuing. And I can't thank my Creator enough for this blessing, because to serve is to live.
Also, they say that traveling and living abroad, it really expands your horizon. How true do you think that is?
Oh, sure it is, because I give you one example. I had a posting in Qatar early on, and my ambassador there was very passionate about the Pakistani diaspora. So I noticed and I learned my early lessons from him. So when I went to serve in Europe and I went to serve in the United States, I immediately clicked with the diaspora, and I learned that there were so many Jews there who were far more patriotic than those living in Pakistan. Their commitment to Pakistan, sometimes they would even complain that we are probably frozen in time when we left Pakistan, so that love has stayed inside them. So I learned a lot from them, and I must say that they are ready to serve your country, and I saw practical experience. I give you an example. In 2010 floods, and before that in 2009 when there were Swat displacements, I arranged some fundraisers there. You cannot imagine how those people poured out their pockets, just because they thought that Pakistan, we cannot let Pakistan go down, our people of Pakistan. And in the United States, again, I came across from the length and breadth of the United States, the Pakistani is so talented. But of course, I must also add, right in the same sentence, that we got to know the method to utilize the skills and expertise of overseas Pakistani. They serve 3 roles. One, they're all ambassadors of Pakistan. True. Informal ambassadors of Pakistan. If they behave well, I would tell them, then if you're coming across a European or an American or a Gulfian or somebody, he or she would judge Pakistan from your conduct and behavior. So you're an ambassador of Pakistan. So you contribute directly to the image of Pakistan. Second, they also want to invest in Pakistan. They want to invest in Pakistan, so they have a value, because there were many in Netherlands, for example. I was able to persuade some of them who were able to invest here, become exporters, their family, and they become importers there to, take them, to form a cycle. And thirdly, I think the overseas Pakistanis indirectly contribute by sending remittances. True. Because it helps us bridge the budget deficit. So my sense is that instead of relying on foreign aid, which I believe is so unhealthy for any nation, your own compatriots will. And I think one step that this government has taken is phenomenally useful, which is to allow them to open the Roshan digital accounts. So this way they have been able to bring in their money, bring in through banking channels rather than hundi, and then contribute to the economic life of Pakistan. So I think this was one big lesson that I learned, that our diaspora is our real asset. So it's far more important to take steady steps, but base it on the compass of your life. What you want to achieve and what do you want to give in return. I think that's what is more important than just being so efficient that, that people set their clocks.
That's true, that's true. Now, moving back a few more years, when did you get married?
I got married in 1984 to a wonderful lady named Najia. She is an artist by grain. I don't think she got formal education, except when we went to Iran, she joined some schools, and when we were in New York again, she joined some schools. But she is a landscape artist. And she has done her painting exhibitions, but also we are blessed to have all our houses interior decorated by her. And we have 3 children, lovely children, loving children, and I'm very, very happy that Najia became my life partner.
Also, sir, like you mentioned, the direction in your life. Also, the field that you chose, I'm sure it's quite time-consuming. How has that affected your the balance between your social, work, and family life?
It was tough, but trust me, I read early on that when you come across 2 choices, equally competitive on your time and equally urgent and stressful on your time, you have to make a choice. So you make a choice, and once you have made your choice, stop worrying about the other one. Then just get into that. For example, if my family needs me, but my workplace also needs me, around the same time, I have to assess what is more important for me. And if at that point in time I assess that my son's birthday is more important for me, I better get there. And then stop thinking, I worry about those consequences, I do whatever patchwork I need to do, but I should make a choice and then live through that moment. Living through that moment, rather than driving to my home and constantly worrying, oh, what will happen to that my workplace. If I was that worried, I should have stuck into the workplace and hoped that my family will understand. So I learned that the life is all about making choices. So if you make the choices, once you have made a choice, live in the present, live in that choice, and you will be a far happier man. So I've been able to strike that balance between family life and my professional life. But I must also give credit to my family, because they were far more accommodating than I thought I was to them.
That's wonderful indeed. Now, you spoke about choices, right? It's all, life is all a game of choices.
Absolutely.
But then there are some people who can't make those choices because they think that they're dependent, they can't make the right choices, they just drag on their lives, carry out with their routines, and cannot grow like they have the potential to grow. They can't grow. What would you say to such people? Or is it something that's inculcated by the teachers and parents? Or is it something that you learn? Is it a learned behavior? Or is it something that you get from your family or something from your genes? What do you say?
In my view, life is like a floating river. And you are riding on a small plank. It could well be that you were born into a well-heeled family, so you are born on a cruise. It could well be that you are struggling on a straw. And then with the water moving, you will find different opportunities, different planks coming your way. Those were opportunities. Sometimes you are able to grab it. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't muster the strength to grab it. But there are people who grab every opportunity to rise. But that would require effort. If you settle for less, you will never be able to rise. So it doesn't matter whether you were born as a pauper, you were born in a slum, or you were born in a feudal lord's house. What matters is how you accept that life. In fact, for people who were born to be blessed ones in terms of resources, they have a much greater responsibility, because they will have to explain to the Creator that I received so much resources, what did I give back? Whereas those who were not endowed with, to begin with, and their life was tough on them, for them Allah has given them this opportunity that if you rise, that will give you enough pleasure, of sense of satisfaction, that life will be made up for you.
True. Like someone said, you need to learn, earn, and return to the society.
Have you seen that movie, Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
What does it say? It says that life is about struggle. It's not the end point. It's the journey. And if you've been able to work hard and get all that into your life, then you made it. That's what happiness is all about.
And tell me, you have had such a busy schedule. The brought-up of your children, how much have you transferred your passions in your children?
Oh, I'm truly blessed by those children. I don't know whether it goes to the credit of my wife who raised them, because practically 90% it was her contribution. But they have groomed to be wonderful children. My eldest is as an architect. He left New York while he was working there of his own volition to serve Lahore. He formed a company there. He served there for about 8 to 10 years. And then he was feeling that his education levels are going down, so he has gone for his PhD, which he is about to complete in Australia from University of Queensland in Brisbane. He has now become an urban planner rather than architect alone. And he was the one who built our house, so I even don't know how my house got built. He built our house in Lahore, which is our hometown. And then I have the second son, who is a finance and accounting major. He's working for an organization called Sustainable Energy for All, which is a hybrid and supported by both United Nations and World Bank. He lives in Vienna, Austria, although he's visiting us these days, but he lives and works there. Both are married, both have children. And my daughter is a researcher now, like me, because I have started my second career as a research and dialogue person. So she liked to build her career in academia and research. So after her master's from Rotterdam University, Erasmus University in Rotterdam, she came back and she's working for a think tank now. She's also married. So we're very happy actually from ours. And again, I said that I should be much more grateful to the creator of all of us than any other person, because I have been blessed.
Alhamdulillah, that's true. That's a great blessing indeed. Now, sir, tell me, you are Director General here at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. The world is talking about peace. There have been so many webinars talking about peace, talking about dialogue. But there is something that maybe it's in the politics, maybe it's in the air, maybe the world has changing, it's changed completely, the world order has changed completely. We are not able to achieve or attain peace. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, I must say that the world order that was created after the Second World War has crumbled. It is shaking and it is coming down, but it has not been replaced by an equally strong edifice. So we are passing through a transition and a flux. Like Richard Haas wrote that book in 2016, A World in Disarray. We are in disarray. And nobody knows what will actually replace this. So as a result, a few undesirable phenomena have been unleashed. One of them is that unilateralism, rather than multilateralism, is on the ascendant. We see that every country, like Donald Trump used to say, America first. Then people would say China first, Turkey first, India first, Pakistan first. So that spirit of interdependence, that globalization which we thought after the demise of the Soviet Union would create synergies amongst us, has disappeared. And I think 9/11 was a turning point. And ever since, the world is no more like that. And then unilateralism came, United States invasion of Iraq, and so on and so forth. So unilateralism is on the right. We also see multipolar world now. Yes. There are other centers of power which are emerging. And we can see that the equilibrium, new balance of power will now be needed. We are also seeing changes in the global norms. We learned growing that free international trade is good, but we see now protectionism rising. Yes. We learned that immigrants bring fresh blood to societies. We see that immigrants are now being viewed as an economic threat or even a security threat. So we see all kinds of phobias, xenophobia, hatred for outsiders, Islamophobia being a part of that. We see Hindutva-driven polity in India, next door, where the minorities don't know what their future would be. Muslims and Christians and Sikhs and everybody else, because Mr. Modi wants to create a Hindu state. So we can see these disturbing trends. And finally, the most consequential trend that I see for us and for our region and perhaps for the world is major power competition between the United States and China. And I see that because last time around, when two superpowers were quarreling with each other in Afghanistan, Pakistan ended up in the vortex of that, and we have suffered ever since. And therefore, this time around, although the two powers have not entered into a Cold War, they are on the cusp of a Cold War, but they are not there yet. But if it happens, I'm afraid Pakistan could have a difficult time making choices. And that is why the leadership of Pakistan and people like us continue to advise them that we should not become a victim of that competition. In fact, we should benefit from that competition. So we are close to China. We have entered into collaborative arrangements with China. That cooperation is non-negotiable. But that does not mean that we give up our cooperation with the United States, that we make an enemy out of the United States. No, we don't want that. United States is an important country. So we got to learn to strike balance. Today's diplomacy is all about balance. Today's diplomacy is issue-based alliances. It's no longer being in one camp or the other. So we got to have the right kind of diplomatic skills and finesse to find the right balance in our policies towards the United States and policies towards China, in our policies towards Iran, which is a neighbor, and in our policies with Saudi Arabia, which is a friend. So we got to strike balance. But at the same time, we got to base it on principles, a principles-based foreign policy. And I think our country has done well. Take, for example, Afghanistan.
I was going to ask you.
We have taken a position that there is no military solution. We stuck to it.
We stuck to it.
We were, criticized heavily by Ashraf Ghani and Karzai and United States and India and everybody. But you saw that Pakistan was vindicated. And today, Pakistan stands stronger on this. Another example, when the Arab Spring started in the Middle East and they wanted to make regime changes using external force, we took a stand. No, we got to protect and respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries. And as a result, Pakistan did not interfere in any Arab Spring country. We kept our embassy in Syria all throughout, when there were friends of Pakistan on both sides of the aisle, because we followed a principles-based approach. And we have seen that this whole concept of responsibility to protect using external force to make regime changes in those countries has turned out to be disastrous. Look at Libya today, look at Iraq today, or Yemen, or even other countries. So I think Pakistan has followed a principles-based approach. We should give a little pat on our back for running a foreign policy which has ultimately stood the test of time.
Rather than always criticizing our own
Rather than
governments and
always,
foreign policies.
criticizing
Yes.
it. I believe so. I genuinely believe that. And I think very soon you will have my book, memoir, coming out, and that defends the narratives of Pakistan. That tells you how strong and successful we were in defending all our narratives vis-a-vis United States, vis-a-vis India, vis-a-vis Afghanistan, the key challenges that we faced.
And when are we expecting that book? Because I'm now genuinely interested in reading that.
Thank you. Yeah, it should be here in about a week's time, maybe.
I see.
And I based it again on principles, like all my life. And the principles that I followed in that book is, one, it is not about personalities. It's about issues. It's about events. Two, I will not be divulging any secret that came to me by virtue of my position in the official position, unless it became a public knowledge. And third, I will be defending the narratives of Pakistan in that book, because as a former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, this is expected of me. So it's not a book which will run anyone down. It will not a book which will run any institution of Pakistan down, or any country or Pakistan itself. But in fact, it will a befitting tribute to this great country from which I have gained all that I have in my life.
That's wonderful, because for a change, I'm listening to something positive. For a change, I'm listening to someone saying so many positive things about what the country has done, what the governments have done so far, about the foreign policy, about the security policy. Really, it gives me immense pleasure, because that's why I'm saying I'm looking forward to reading it, because I would love to gain some knowledge. Another book that you authored, Pakistan Mirrored to the Dutch. Could you tell us something about that?
Pakistan Mirrored to Dutch Eyes was a narration of a public diplomacy experiment that I ran in the Netherlands in 3 years in cooperation with the Pakistani Dutch community there. And that was the time when public diplomacy was just coming up. This is January of 2009 when I went there. And I thought, let me run an experiment to see. People say that if you work with the community, you can serve Pakistan's interests much better. And it was a difficult time. It was a difficult time because Swat was happening, the floods were there, and then Osama bin Laden incident happened in 2011, etc. But trust me, that public diplomacy experiment showed to me and convinced me that there is always enough good to be placed on the table. And I saw that it worked. It worked. And I had to create certain platforms to achieve that. For example, there was the Dutch are passionate about hockey, field hockey. So we revived a tradition of a cup where the team of the Dutch Parliament, a Dutch foreign ministry team, and Pakistani Dutch community team would play every year. So even the Dutch, just the previous Dutch foreign minister was the captain of their team. He was actually, the day COVID started, he was to come and speak here in this institute, Stef Blok. So I was very pleased. And similarly, we started a number of other streams. My book speaks about public diplomacy is doable, reachable, and now I have given lectures in public diplomacy much beyond what I did there, because I think Pakistan has so many positive sides to it. I give you 2 examples, or maybe 3 examples, and it will explain to you what I am saying. Look at the mountains of Pakistan. 8 of the 11 highest peaks are here. Look at the country as a bastion of religions of the world. Sufi Islam, Sikhism, Buddhism, Hinduism. Look at this country as a board of civilizations, great civilizations of our times. Gandhara, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and now Mehergarh, 7,000 years old. And I think if you are able to, and I remember Sri Lankan foreign minister telling us one day that even a 3rd grader in Sri Lanka knows where Taxila is, Taxila. And he was of the view that if you build a 5-star hotel and a good road from airport to that hotel and some tourist guides, and those that will take you to those stupas. By the way, that museum is very good, Taxila Museum. He thought that you will be never short of tourist guides from Sri Lanka to Thailand to Japan. Just one part. Another example, Mohenjo-daro. Michael Jensen, a German scholar who has spent his lifetime on Mohenjo-daro, had a very nice book on that. He spent many, many years there. He said that you have such a treasure for public diplomacy that people will forget about counter-terrorism and extremism and all those things that come to be associated with Pakistan. Just build attractions there, you will have no dearth of tourists, a beeline of tourists coming there, because it is something that very few countries have. So public diplomacy, the length and breadth of it and scope of it is much broader. Provided we put our heart and soul on it, we make this a true priority rather than always defending ourselves. So don't be sitting in a trench with a trench mentality and taking those punches, but be proactive and exploit your strengths. So build on diplomacy on your strengths, not on your vulnerabilities.
Awesome, that's true. So since we're in the Strategic Institute, Islamabad, can you take us to a part of this institute so we can also see and let our viewers also see?
Well, this Institute of Strategic Study is a premier institute of Pakistan. It was established in 1973. In fact, 2 years down the line, we'll be celebrating Golden Jubilee of the setting up this. This is directly connected to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in terms of funding, but we are autonomous, independent. So therefore, we are able to make contributions to the foreign and security policy of Pakistan. Some of them are confidential, for which I organize like Monday retreats and Tuesday dialogues, where we bring together the brilliant minds of Pakistan, and we prepare some recommendations, only recommendations, and send it to the government, to stakeholders, to foreign ministry. But bulk of our work is public. So the way we have organized or reorganized our work is that we have created 5 centers of excellence. And our, one center is China-Pakistan Study Center. You know, our relationship with China is so important. So we want to tell people what it means for the everyday life of the people of Pakistan. We have an India Study Center, which works on not only India, but also South Asia, other South Asian countries. We have a center for Afghanistan, Middle East, and Africa. Africa, because we want to promote economic diplomacy, and foreign ministry, and particularly our present foreign minister, is very keen on that, so we are helping them in that. And Afghanistan, of course, we have had 7 to 8 conversations on Afghanistan in the past just 2 to 3 weeks, because we want, from perspective of China and Russia and Central Asia and Iran and United States and others, so that we give sound advice to the government of Pakistan as to what we should do. We have another center which is called Arms Control and Disarmament Center. You know, Pakistan is a nuclear state. This nuclear deterrence is of fundamental importance for Pakistan, because this provides us assurance against the possible aggression that could happen from our east. And then finally, we have Center for Strategic Perspectives, which deals with the non-traditional security threats, such as water security and climate change and food security and cyber security and hybrid warfare and lawfare and so on and so forth, population. So we are working on all these centers, and we have a motto, what is called achieve more with less. Let me explain. All these centers have only 2 to 3 or 4 researchers and 1 director, but when one is working or doing an event, the backstopping comes from all the other 4 centers.
I see.
So this way we economize our resources. So if India Study Center is doing a program, all other centers will fall in line to help them. And tomorrow it will be China Study Center, then we all will help to fall in line to help them. We have adopted all the modern tools. We have key performance indicators down to everything that a researcher does. We have sent benchmarking. We have a vision 2023, and every year we do review of what we have achieved. We have set up advisory boards of every center, and we do annual meetings. In the first quarter, all advisory boards will meet. We will present them. Every center will present them what we have done, and then get their feedback to make a new plan of action for the next year, and all that within the rubric of Vision 2023. So I think this institute and our stakeholders are very happy with us. They keep giving us different themes on which we work. Our researchers are top of the line. In fact, they are in high demand, and I've lost many of them to other institutions, which I welcome, because I say, no, you go, and because you will be the torchbearer of ISSI in those institutions. And we do all our recruitments through competition. Not a single person has been brought in by me by name. No, all competition, because I think Pakistan has enough talent. If there is one thing we can follow, which will be a panacea to all our problems, it's meritocracy. Follow merit, and it will take you places.
I completely agree with that. Now, sir, may we see some of the centers that you just mentioned?
Oh, I would love it. And we're sitting in the library. This library too is a bastion of learning. We have now connected to more than 18 databases all over. And on different, I wish I had time to give you briefings, but let me walk you through the library and some of the centers.
Sure.
Thank you. This library is a pride of this institute, and we are connected to God knows how many places, and all thanks to Abid Hussain. Abid, tell me, how many e-books do we have in this library?
We have 1 million online books, and we also offering granting access to these books, and more than 2 million articles are available here.
2 million articles, 1 million e-books, and 16,000, I think, hard copies.
16,000 printed books, and more than 20,000 e-journals can also be accessed from these places.
Yeah. One public service that Abid has started is very, very useful. For a very nominal amount, you can become a member.
I was going to ask. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a public service. Anyone can become a member. We have actually hundreds of members, and they get every day by email relevant articles as well as the books that they need on demand.
That's amazing.
So this is the India Study Center. We have these cubicles for everyone. This gentleman is Dost Mohammed from our beautiful province of Balochistan. He's a very good researcher, and similarly Mavish and others are there. This one, they are doing a phenomenal work for Pakistan. because focusing on India. And this is the recent book we published. This center has published India's relations with its neighbors, cooperation or confrontation. So it's very popular book. Now it's being sold, and also this center, the researchers have contributed and launched this book. It was launched very recently. So let me also show you the Center for Afghanistan, Middle East and Africa. And if you come in, you will again see the same cubicles that we have. And some of the researchers are sitting here and they're working. So this is our standard pattern. They all have, you know, the requisite facilities that they need for
the research.
Now, this is the Center for Strategic Perspectives. As I indicated to you, they are working on very, very important themes that touch the everyday life of the people of Pakistan: food security and water security and climate change and things of this sort. And these are all very, very able researchers. And they are also now planning a big event on essentially on population challenges of Pakistan and also climate change challenges of Pakistan. So this is the Center for Afghanistan, Middle East and Africa. And these days, you know, Afghanistan is
a hot topic.
Is a hot topic.
Yes.
Director Amina Khan is running this center with the help of other researchers. And she herself is a very able and competent expert on Afghanistan.
What exactly are you guys doing here as far as research is concerned, as far as policy matters are concerned, or assisting the government is concerned?
Well, since the center has been made, we've been obviously focusing on the situation in Afghanistan, how it's evolving, how it's going to affect the relationship with Pakistan. And Ambassador Chaudhry has been very, forthful in this sense that he's been pushing for a greater partnership with Afghan think tanks. And I'm proud to say that since the center has been established, we have signed 2 MOUs with leading think tanks in Afghanistan. So in that sense, the academic collaboration is increasing. We provide a number of policy inputs to a number of governmental organizations, primarily MOFA, on how the relationship can improve.
So this is our China-Pakistan Study Center, one of the oldest. And it is being run very ably by Dr. Talat Shabir. He is a PhD, he's worked on China, he's traveled there. So if you want to ask him something, he's the man.
What exactly are we doing here? Have there any MOUs been signed with the government of China, and what assistance are we giving to the government here?
Right. China-Pakistan Study Center actually works on China-Pakistan relations. We cover all the facets of Pakistan-China relations, and of course CPAC and Belt and Road Initiative. So in this regard, we have had MOUs signed with various think tanks in China, like there are a couple of think tanks that we have.
And universities.
And universities. There are institutes who are working on CPAC. We also have MOUs and close collaboration with those institutes also.
Right. There are, Dr. Talat Shabir is a very creative mind. He was able to bring together, 16 China study centers in Pakistan, all over Pakistan, including from interior Sindh and everywhere, and 10 Pakistan study centers in China all over. And twice we brought them all together by Zoom, by web link. And the idea was to promote understanding amongst the elite and the academic elite and the intelligentsia. And they have also, would you like to?
We also publish Pivot magazine. This is a quarterly magazine that we publish. And this is also, we get articles from various scholars, academicians, practitioners on Pakistan-China relations. And this has a galaxy of articles and themes covering, for example, food, fashion, people-to-people contact.
And this is for the 70, as you can see, 70 words written.
This edition is a special edition of this magazine.
Thank you.
We're outside on the balcony of the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, and we have, of course, with us Mr. Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry. Sir, you have made differences wherever you've gone, be it any country that you've represented Pakistan in, be it right now where you're Director General. Can you tell us all the out-of-the-box thinking, the initiatives that you've taken here, like we heard from some of your members of your researchers that they mentioned that under the leadership of you, they signed MOUs, they went here, they went there, they did something that's out of the box, something that's out of the ordinary. Could you highlight some of your achievements here?
First priority for us was to promote the narratives that explain Pakistan best. And that's where this team comes in. You have seen Dr. Amina, this Dr. Neelam, she was in the strategic perspective there. You went there. Malik Qasim is looking after arms control. He himself is a big researcher on arms control. And this balcony that you see is basically to provide that ambience for researchers to think out of the box, to reflect and to create. But our primary job actually is on promoting narratives, to understanding narratives working against Pakistan as well as for Pakistan, and then helping the government. Then we also provide solutions to the government of Pakistan. For any challenges that we analyze the challenges, we provide those solutions. That's why the centers is sort of an idea that has recently been promulgated by us to produce focused research, because we think that unless we are focused in our work, we'll not be able to make that punch which is required. Luckily, all of these gentlemen and ladies are so committed professionals, I can't tell you. Each one of them is always on the phone talking to counterparts in different countries of the world, because we got to get our narratives across. So we have, I think, signed more than 67 MOUs and institutional arrangements with institutions inside and outside the country. So both are important. Inside, because you need to broaden the ownership of the people of Pakistan, of the narratives of the policies of the Union. That means that people of Pakistan should take the ownership of the policies of the government. And the second, outside. So all of them in their own areas have been instrumental in making those institutional arrangements. Even yesterday we had, for example, an institutional dialogue with IPIS in Tehran, Iran. They had about 3 themes and 4-5 researchers sitting there, 4 or 5 sitting on our side. Not only researchers, but also former ambassadors, former generals, as well as academic people. And we do these sessions. So we are doing these with institutions from China and from even Bangladesh and Afghanistan and Iran and United States and Europe in different countries. So that's the contribution these all 5 directors are making. So I think that's the niche that we have.
That's wonderful, and I hope and I pray that under your able leadership you will take this institute further and further. And it was an immense pleasure talking to you today.
Let me say one thing though, that we could not have done it without the support that we received from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The foreign minister has visited my office God knows how many times, and this institution God knows how many times. So they provide us this support and succor and wisdom, as well as the direction. And we cannot be more grateful to them that this is becoming a useful institute for them and for the country.
Absolutely. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Bangash.
Thank you,
Fahim, as well. Thank you very much. Well, viewers, this was today's episode of Sky is the Limit with former Ambassador Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry, serving as Director General in the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. And I'm sure you have gained some motivation from his conversation that he had with us. I gained a lot of motivation from him, because obviously if you have to lead, you have to act upon it. If you want to make a change, change comes from within. And obviously this is all that we can do in our lives, because sitting at home on a couch like a cucumber wouldn't do. One has to move forward, one has to grow, one has to prosper for themselves, for their society, for their nation, for their country. Thank you so much. Keep watching BTV World. Allah Hafiz.